And welcome everyone to week 2 of the high school football season. We are here on this Tuesday afternoon at Bishop Reedy High School to preview the Silver Knights game coming up against West Jefferson on Friday. I'm Dave Purpura along with Jarrod, Ulrey, and our guest to begin the show is Reedy head coach Joel Cutler. Good to see you again, Coach.
Thanks, Dave.
And you're in your second stint out here at Reedy. Obviously, you had a lot of success in the first one. The second one has started off pretty nicely. How are you liking things back here so far?
Oh, it's been great. A lot of support all the way around. Kids are excited. Community is excited, and we're just real proud of the team and how we got off to a good start.
24-7, I think it was, over Genoa. Sorry, Jarrod.
Yep.
Good start, yeah.
Yeah, Coach Cutler, I mean, you had some really nice seasons over at UA. You're back here now. What are some of your takeaways from your experience over there? What were some of the things you're going to remember? Maybe some things you grew as a coach over there.
I definitely, that's my grassroots. Aside from where I grew up, with Jonathan Ulrey and whatnot, but I learned under Coach as a young assistant with the state championship staff, and then had the pleasure to work under Mike Golden as well. I feel like I grew up under those guys for a reason, right? And we're excited to be back here at Bishop Reedy now and try to continue building our relationships with our players and our fans.
You had a road trip to start the season for sure. It was about 3 hours up to near Toledo last week. What stood out to you about that win over Genoa?
Well, just how our players handled it in a business-like atmosphere, and that's kind of what my challenge was to them all of last week. Based on film study and things like that, I thought it was going to be a fourth quarter kind of battle. It was going to last the duration of the game. It was, could we stay focused long enough and handle the road trip to be able to come out strong and fast?
Well, last year, Reedy beat West Jeff, and you guys get to play them Friday at Fortress Ovitz. What do you think might be some of the keys to this matchup Friday night?
I think, moving forward, hats off to the West Jeff staff. I got a younger brother that teaches there and used to coach for that staff, so Sean Bisher, Matt Adams, all those guys, I consider them friends, and they do things the right way. So I think it's going to be a cultural battle of who's going to swing hardest, longest, things of that nature. I think special teams are going to be huge, especially early season games. Special teams always seems to play a major piece, no matter what level of football you're talking about. So we're trying to be very attentive to all of the details moving forward because this is a big one for us.
I think they had a 53-7 win last week. What were some of the things that jump out to you off the film with them?
They're very smart scheme-wise, and they know who they are. They know what they're doing as a staff and as a program. They're very physical, big, strong, up front, on the line of scrimmage, both sides of the football. Their kicking phases are well coached, I tell you what, they got a heck of a running back in Gabe Jones, and he plays a little defense too. We need to know where he is all the time.
Sounds great.
All right, Coach. Well, hey, best of luck out of Fortress Ovitz. Good to see you again, Joel.
Thanks, Jarrod.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
That is Reedy coach Joel Cutler. He's going to be he's heading back out to practice with his team here this afternoon. We're just outside the high school on the practice field. Every time I used to end a conversation with him, it would be Go Bears.
Go Bears.
When he was over at UA. So that definitely sounds familiar. You did the preview for this game. Anything else that stands out to you about this game Friday night over at Ovitz?
He mentioned Coach Sean Besher. I got a chance to talk to Sean for our football guide too this year, and they have a great program out there at West Jefferson. His son is actually the quarterback this year, Tyler, and a couple things about West Jefferson. They have a history of success. They've been very good for a long time. They've had some really great runs. Actually, last year was a really good run for them, but they kind of they weren't satisfied with just making the playoffs. I know they're very hungry this year. Their opening win, there was not even a competition. They just really crushed that team. Lachlan. They really crushed them. A few things as far as West Jeff's concerned. He mentioned Gabe Jones, their running back, and he is very good. I think he had around 1,300 yards last year. They also returned several of their linemen, and of course their quarterback threw for 4 touchdowns last Friday, so that doesn't hurt. Reedy has Jack Foley, who we're going to talk about from time to time this year, I'm sure. He rushed for 132 yards. One thing that I kind of noticed when I was looking at the stats from that Genoa game, he only carried it 22 times. Now, there were times last year he probably carried it at least 27 to 30 times a game.
That's the reason why last year you said only 22.
I mean, 22 is just that's a solid. I mean, it's busy.
Yes.
But, they are trying to mix it up a little bit. And I think, Coach Cutler was saying before he had a chance to go on here, he was saying that they maybe took Genoa area by surprise in a couple things. They did a lot of different formations. They have a young athletic quarterback in Darius Parham, and really is a team to watch next few weeks. Yeah.
All right, we'll see if they can get off to a 2-0 start over at Obet's on Thursday. There's another game, or Friday, excuse me. There's another game over there this weekend that we'll mention in just a couple of minutes. Two teams that are 1-0, like this matchup. One of the battles of Hilliard, the beginning of kind of that 3-week round robin, as it is every year. Davidson and Darby. This rivalry, it's always a good one. Davidson, I believe, is 8-4 in the series. I don't know if it's an underrated rivalry. I mean, it comes really early in week 2 because these teams are not in the same division of the OCC. That's going to continue next year when this whole thing is realigned again. But this is a fun game to cover every single year, a fun game to watch every single year.
And actually, this matchup has gotten closer as years have gone on. They've split their last 4.
Yes.
So, and you're looking at, yes, I mean, there's the stereotypical Hilliard teams of they don't really pass much and stuff like that. Actually, last week, Hilliard-Davidson attempted 0 passes. Hilliard-Darby attempted 3. So,
you're going to win over Olentan.
Maybe that game's going to be over about 8:45 on Friday, which is, kind of a reporter's dream, I guess. But
I keep hearing that when I cover those games, and it never happens that way.
Darby is a team that I really like this year. They've got the only thing they were really kind of lacking heading into the season was experience on their line. But they've got Connor Jones, who's a really talented running back, and they've got a lot of other guys back. And they have a very nice win under their belts against Olentangy.
Mm-hmm. Davidson coming off a shutout win over Grove City last week to start 1-0 again. Like you said, it was kind of just that same recipe for them. It's, hey, you know what? If it works, works.
Absolutely.
So we'll see if they're able to take that into a 2-0 start this week. The third Hilliard High School, at least in terms of the context that we're talking about, is Hilliard Bradley. They dropped a game to Springfield 44-7 last week. They're going to take on an Olentangy Orange team that defeated Worthington Kilbourne in its opener. Orange, kind of a new look. It doesn't have Zach Harrison for the first time in a couple of years. We'll see what happens with that. This is the beginning of a tough stretch for Bradley.
I don't really have a very good feel for this matchup. I don't know about you, but Bradley, yes, I think Springfield is a very, very good team. They're going to be a playoff team, and for Bradley to lose to them, I don't think that's a big surprise. Now, the way they
replacing
lost,
as much as they're replacing.
I mean, Springfield had a lot back this year, and I mean, they're thinking they could go like 10-0 or something. I mean, they're really good. Bradley, I think they maybe are thinking, what are we going to be this year? This is a big game for them to kind of say, hey, can we bounce back? Orange was a playoff team last year. They've had a really nice run under Coach Zeb Schroeder the last few years. Orange is, they beat a Worthington Kilbourne team that was 1-9 last year, and they only beat him 16-6. So we're going to find out in the next few weeks, is that because Kilbourne is better, or is that because Orange is maybe kind of retooling or something this year? So this is a very interesting matchup.
Well, Kilbourne's new coach pretty well, Mike Edwards,
right.
Who was on the Pickerington North staff for a long time. And like I was saying, this begins kind of the stretch, a big stretch for Bradley. I mean, they take on Orange this week, and then they've got Davidson and Darby each of the next 2 weeks. So it doesn't get any easier for them. One of the teams that you cover, and you in fact saw on Saturday night, was DeSales. They got to a nice start with a win over Dayton Carroll over Huber Heights Wayne. They're going to play a Division I team in Dublin Jerome coming up on Friday. One thing that stood out to me is what a win this would be for them going up to Division II. If you get those Division I points from Dublin Jerome, this could be a really constructive start for DeSales.
Well, and of course last year DeSales opened with a win over Lancaster, and they still were only able to get 5-5, so it didn't actually benefit them last year. But anytime, like you said, anytime you can go and if they can go and beat Jerome this week, that would be huge. They're probably talking about some of the mistakes and things that they made in week 1. They committed a couple of turnovers. They also were whistled for 160 yards of penalties. Now, the other team was whistled for 100 yards of penalties, so, maybe the officials just kind of had a loose whistle that night.
That can happen, especially sometimes early in the season.
I mean, there was lots of personal fouls on both teams, just a lot of sloppy play.
Makes for a game without a lot of flow.
It was it was kind of tough to watch, honestly. DeSales does have some explosion on their offense. Reno Godfrey threw for over 300 yards. They've got a couple nice wide receivers. Owen Faulkner's he's really impressive. He had about 8 or 9 catches the other night. Very solid. And And Jerome's coming off a good win. I mean, I'm not really sure about Central Crossing yet, but anytime you can go beat somebody 34-3, I mean, it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Jerome is off that win over Central Crossing, and Crossing is replacing a lot of important guys as well. This is the first of a 2-year deal with them. I think Central Crossing knew they were going to be in kind of a tough battle with Dublin Jerome, and that's really how it came to pass last week. A couple of other matchups we want to mention. Dublin Scioto is at New Albany. Now, this is a Scioto team that's coming off a loss to St. Charles 28-21. They had to play a backup quarterback, Ibi Abumalu, and I really hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, had to come in for Chad Ray, passed for 166 yards and a couple of touchdowns in the loss to St. Charles. And they're facing a New Albany team that's in a little bit of flux right now, and I mention that because, unfortunately, Coach Bubba Kidwell had a heart attack late Friday night, early Saturday morning after a loss to Westerville South. He went home from the hospital yesterday, and offensive coordinator Brian Finn is the coach in the interim.
Yeah, this is going to be an emotional game for New Albany, obviously.
Yeah. And it would have been a big one anyway. You don't want to start 0-2, but now you're playing for something bigger than that. Reed Hall rushed for over 200 yards in that game last week. I mean, he was the third string running back last year, and he's kind of making his case as to why he moved up the depth chart.
We're hoping, we're rooting for a quick return for Coach Kidwell to come back. Really great guy. I got to cover one of their games last year. Just a tremendous passion for football, and I know that the community of New Albany and the community of Gahanna, where he's from, both are praying for him.
I'm not afraid to say. I mean, when that news, it kind of shakes you up, especially two guys in our 40s like this. Andy behind the camera, and Bubba's right around our age. I mean, it's tough when you hear that kind of news. Pickerington North is at Clayton Northmont. The big thing that stood out to me when I was looking just through some notes earlier today for this is that you have a Pickerington North team coming off a loss to Olentangy Liberty. They had 15 yards on the ground. Clayton Northmont played Dublin Kaufman, had a little more than that. They had 18 yards on the ground. I mean, these are going to be two teams really hungry to establish the running game and obviously get off the schneid after dropping their openers last week.
This is going to be a 3-hour game.
It'd be a lot of throwing, you think?
Don Myers, the new Pickerington North quarterback, I actually thought he was pretty solid. Now, they didn't, they're asking him to do a lot of short passes to Chris Scott right now, but that's a pretty effective play. I mean, he had 15 catches for over 100 yards receiving. And when he wasn't thrown to him, he hooked up with Jack Sawyer several times. So, Pickerington North, I think, will end up being a solid team. Now, it's a matter of time. I mean, they've got a very tough schedule, too. So, they've got to figure it out quick.
Yes, they do. And that's North's second consecutive road game to start the season. And
they played 8 teams that made the playoffs last year.
Yeah, and that league is always going to be a bear, let alone the non-league schedule that they play outside of it. Delaware is at Marysville. I know this is another game that you previewed, kind of the Battle of US 36, if you will, that is being played at Hilliard-Bradley because Marysville is undergoing some construction right now. They had to play Northland up at Olentangy last week. Delaware is going for its 4th win in the past 6 years over Marysville, and both of these teams are coming off shutouts to begin the season.
Yes, these are a couple of teams that traditionally are in that 5-5, 6-4 range. But I actually think this is a huge game, and I know that might seem like an exaggeration. I mean, it's week 2, but both of these teams are in Region 2 and not Region 3. There's only 5 Central Ohio teams in Region 2, which is filled with lots of Dayton teams and teams that are in the...
Northmont is in Region 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. And both teams kind of have some navigable type of weeks coming up. They have, I believe that if Marysville, they play Dublin Kaufman in week 6, there's a possibility they could be 4-1 heading into that game.
That would be their league opener.
And then there's a couple of, you'd have to think that Delaware, they've also got some pretty winnable games coming up. Not to finger point at anybody, but they've got a lot of guys back. They get their running back, get their quarterback back. They're feeling pretty good out. Both teams have really good opening week 1 wins, so it's a big game.
Delaware over Buckeye Valley and Marysville over Northland. Thomas Worthington, 2 teams seeking their first win, will take on Westerville North, who would be the second team that I forgot to mention after the 2 teams. Previewed that one a little bit. Thomas played Canal pretty tough on Friday for a half. And not to say they didn't play him tough in the second half, but it was more some self-inflicted wounds. They didn't tackle as well in the second half, is what their coach was telling me, and they went down 35-17. Westerville North fell behind early. 2 turnovers turned into Groveport touchdowns. They lost 31-6. And this has been a well early in the season. We'll see what they can build off of for week 2, I guess.
And I thought this was one we should talk about a little bit, just because Westerville North beat them last year on their way to I believe they went 3-7 last year. So yeah, like you said, this is the type of game that's going to be very important for both of these teams if they want to have any kind of hopes of improving their records from last year.
A couple games as well to mention. We alluded to this one earlier. We mentioned that Reedy's going to be playing at Obetz on Friday night. Well, there's going to be a game Thursday night as well, and that's between Hamilton Township and Groveport. Groveport is coming off an opening win. I believe Hamilton Township is coming off an opening.
They actually lost their opener. Yes. Yeah, they lost their opener 13-8 to Franklin Heights.
That's what you call adjusting on the fly. You're going to say loss instead of win. So you got a 1-0 against an 0-1. The Cruisers are looking for a lot of big things this year. It just really seems like this might be a year that they're really, and not to say they haven't challenged Canal and New Albany before, but they could very well do that even more so this year.
This is a good time for you to be assuming the Groveport football league.
It is, and I'm excited.
It's an exciting time for them. And that's not to say that Hamilton can't beat them, because last year it was a fairly close game. This game means a lot to both communities. They look at it as a rivalry. I mean, they're not all that far away from each other in proximity, and they call it the Obetz Bowl. So it means a lot to both of them.
It's for the Shield, is what I was told.
That's right.
That's what Groveport's, I believe, their public address announcer was telling me.
That's right.
Last week. A game that's going to be played at the same time as that. That's the television game, the one you're going to be at. Walnut Ridge is at Watkins Memorial.
Well, Walnut Ridge last year, they didn't have any kind of trouble against Watkins. I believe they beat them 50. They won their first 2 games 55-7, and that was one of them. But I will say I think Watkins is probably going to be a lot better. I mean, there were some coaches I was talking to in the preseason that thought Watkins Memorial might win their division in the LCL this year. Now, yeah, that seemed like it might be a stretch, but I think that they're going to be better.
They got some experience back on the lines. They're trying to figure out who the quarterback is, or at least they were before the season, and they've got a good running back.
Walnut Ridge, on the other hand, looks like the real deal in the city to me. I mean, they're loaded. So, and I mean, their quarterback, they have a new quarterback, Howard Thornton. He threw for 5 touchdowns in their opener. It's not bad.
It's a good start for the Scots. Another team that was off to a good start, the final team we're going to mention here is Pickerington Central, the top-ranked team in our Super 7. They went down to Georgia, took care of business, and now they're going to head west to Indiana, over to Columbus, Indiana, to take on East High School.
Yeah, they are doing their yearly travels to play teams that they've never played before. I believe this is the 3rd or 4th year in a row where their first 2 matchups are against teams that they've never played against. And these teams are not, they're not throwaway games. These are not like a Canadian team come down here they've never played before. These are teams that were like 10-2 last year. Columbus East, I believe, they were around 11-2. A very solid team last year. So this will be a good test for them.
And they're going to play another out-of-state team in week 3, albeit that one's going to be at home against Naperville Central out of suburban Chicago. Well, that's going to wrap up our week 2 preview. We'll be back next Tuesday, 4 o'clock or thereabouts. We'll let you know the location later on in the week, but enjoy this week of football, and we will talk to you next week. For Jarrod, Ulrey, I'm Dave Purpura. So long, everybody.